us today and for your testimonies. I'd like to start with you, Mr. Paolosini. May Trin, who's an entrepreneur, was recently on BNN and noted that tech startups are leaving Canada in favor of doing business in the United States. In fact, she said Canada is like a really good-looking guy you want to date, but for some reason he makes it really difficult for you to be with him. Do you believe the immigration system today enables entrepreneurs to stay in Canada and build businesses?
I don't think it does at all. In my opening remarks, I mentioned a friend of mine, Mustafa. Like I mentioned, he has raised $1 million in private investor capital. He's doing operations in 3 different countries. He's got memorandums of understanding signed, and he's going to have to wait 84 years to get his PR. And yes, he's in Canada right now on an open work permit, but the challenge is the uncertainty for these applicants. We've got, like I said, 500 spots for startup visa applicants, and how it got so out of hand with 43,000 in backlog, according to the minister's transition binder, I just don't understand how that happened. I just don't understand, like they were asleep at the switch or something.
Thank you. You've also published letters to the minister regarding processing timelines and inconsistency. How would you characterize the current state of the IRCC?
A bit like a lottery, a little bit random. You never really know what you're going to get. Certainly not fair, no transparency, and very limited accountability. That is my statement on the current state of IRCC.
You've also advocated for a sustainable immigration policy. Do you believe the current Liberal immigration policy over the past few years has been sustainable?
No. Particularly in reference to the I will say that the reduction in the temporary resident numbers has actually been effective, cutting out the, let's say, the student fraud, the international student fraud, and the public-private partnerships with DLIs. But what was concerning was the one-time measure in the budget, where they didn't put the number for protected persons, but they put the number for students and economic class because, well, it's a much smaller number of 33,000 TR to PR. And when you look through the 2024 and 2025 stakeholder consultations and the consultations on express entry, it is obvious what Canadians want. They want to focus on skills, they want to focus on economic class, immigration, and I believe that's why they left it out of the budget.
So just for the record, in your view, has the current government's rapid increase in immigration targets outpaced the actual growth of our housing supply and healthcare infrastructure?
I believe the temporary residents did at some point. Like I mentioned, the current government did really reel that in, and they reeled in the LMIA fraud, which I was quite outspoken about over the last couple of years. And in terms of the permanent numbers, I think the numbers right now are relatively sustainable if they go with 380,000 permanent residents per year in the budget, not 455,000 when you include the special one-time measures.
So one of the phenomena we've seen, certainly in urban areas across the country, definitely in my riding and the greater Toronto area, in the York region, is youth unemployment. You've spoken about the fraudulent labor market impact assessments, LMIAs. Can you expand on the impact this has on youth unemployment?
Of course. What happens is that employers, when they can bring somebody on a closed a closed work permit based on a low wage LMIA, they have basically a modern day wage slave who has to show up for work every single day, or else they're afraid that they're not going to get to realize their dream of remaining in Canada. And for employers that do pay the minimum wage, they find that these workers are better than Canadians who can just they have an open work permit essentially, right? They can go work at the next shop and they're competitive in the market. So this has definitely contributed to it. And like I said, Service Canada has really cracked down on it. So
thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your responses. Mr. Baruchiski, you have described the current state of immigration as possibly the country's worst public policy failure in a century. Can you elaborate on how the Liberal government's failure specifically destabilized Canada's ability to provide housing and health care?
Well, I don't know if I can help on specifically housing and healthcare, but in general, there are large numbers. We were just talking about permanent residents, and we went up to, we were going up to towards 500,000. But that's only a small part of the picture. And the way that happened from right after the pandemic period, there's a huge explosion in various categories of temporary residents. We were never really even told about that. We couldn't plan for that. Okay. And when I'm saying 2-3 times more than the permanent residents. So it doesn't make sense to talk about immigration in Canada by focusing just on permanent residents. Just that little simple point, but it has huge implications because we're talking about many more immigrants, temporary residents.
Now, you've also argued that letting in so many people into the labor market and low-skilled jobs have actually lowered GDP. So, similar question: how does this touch upon youth unemployment?
20 seconds.
Right. Well, what happens if you're bringing a lot of temporary resident students who then are working, so they're taking the kinds of jobs I would want to have if I'm 16, 17, 18. I'd want to work in the fast food restaurant as I did. I'd want to do these things. And if your competition is a lot of people from poorer countries, as a discussion paper from the Bank of Canada was telling us, poorer countries bring certain kinds, lots of younger people, they're studying, but they're not really